Have you ever wondered how can leaders create an environment that nurtures not just professional growth, but also the personal well-being of their teams? Today, I want to invite you to go with me and my special guests into this topic so we can unravel the secrets of leadership that goes beyond the boardroom and meetings and is based on heartfelt leadership. Welcome to Leading Intentionally, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of leadership transformation. I am Carmen Paredes, your guide in this journey, and I'm so thrilled to have you with us today. In each episode, we share strategies, insights, and stories to help you drive growth, enhance workplace culture, and lead with intentionality. Whether you are a seasoned executive, an aspired leader, or just someone passionate about positivity in the workplace, this podcast is for you. Each week, I'll bring you conversations with thought leaders, experts, and trailblazers that will share with you their insights, wisdom, and experiences so that you can apply these practical tips to your leadership journey. Get ready to explore topics like inclusive leadership, women's empowerment, effective communication, and so much more. If you're ready to lead intentionally and make lasting impact in your organization, you are in the right place. Let's embark in this transformative leadership journey together. This is Leading Intentionally. Let's dive in. Welcome to today's episode of Leading Intentionally. And today I have a very special guest with me. Her name is Gabrielle Hayes, and she is a remarkable figure in the field of product development, having transformed the industry by leveraging the untapped potential of professionals worldwide. Her secret to success lies in her unwavering commitment to empowerment and growth mindset. Gabrielle's approach is rooted in creativity and innovation, which she uses to guide professionals in unlocking their full potential, building confidence, and achieving their desired lives through fulfilling careers. And I just love to connect with people that are so aligned with me. Gabrielle, welcome to the podcast today.
Hey, Carmen. It's so good to see you.
Good to see you too. So we're going to talk about something that I'm very, very passionate about, which is leading with your heart. Because I think we need first more leaders in the workplace that are attuned to that music shit, because it just transform lives by, just being compassionate and being human, right? But also because companies don't realize how much leverage just bringing that empowerment and that element into their teams will create for their organizations and really do what all leaders want, which is to increase the bottom line.
That's right.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your story and, how do you end up here, and what do you mean about heartfelt leadership? What is your take on that?
Yeah, certainly. So, I think like many of us that are in the product fields, I fell into it by accident, but then found it was this kind of perfect marriage of all of my skills of creativity and organization and solving problems that I really loved. But what happened was I was bouncing around many companies and also consulting with many different companies where I saw the product teams getting left out because they weren't getting supported as people. They were just getting supported as a role, right? And this job that needed to get done, and they were filling that gap, but they weren't looked at as the people who were doing that job. And so after many years of honestly carrying anger with the culture and the frustrations with what I was seeing in myself and with my teams that I was leading and my inability to truly support them, I decided I had to take that anger veil off and really figure out, how do I help support that? How do I help make a difference? And so that's how I've landed where I'm at now, really helping those individuals in my industry figure out who they are and how do they want to show up in this world. And then how do we marry a career that supports that? And so when I talk about heartfelt leadership, it's just that, right? There's humans on every side of this job equation, who you're serving, who's doing the job, who you're reporting up to or reporting next to. And so really, how do we get to know people as people? Because I don't know about you, Carmen, but when I started my, career, it was that old adage of like, you check your personal life at the door and you show up for your, your professional life. And to be honest, that's not true. One, times are changing and companies are really starting to support people having their own personal brand and their own personal identity. But also, we are a single person at the core, right? We may show up a little bit differently in different settings, but our core values and who we really are is the same person at the end of the day. And so I want to help everyone know how they can show up that way, and how do we lead and mentor people to feel comfortable doing that.
I can tell you, well, first of all, I cannot agree with you more, because this is kind of like what I've done in my career. But I can tell you my experience also, how I had to go through so many times, interactions where people, on the other side might not have understood me and wanted to put me in a mold of compliance that doesn't really work, because I am a Latina and fiery. And, if you want my creativity and my full impact, I need to be who I am, authentic. And so I have a story, and I'm just going to take 1 minute to say it, which is the tale of two burnout stories. I have burnout a couple of times in my career. The first time, though, I hardly talk about it because it didn't turn bad. In fact, I had a leader who was amazing, and yes, she was a woman. She inspired me to become the leader that I actually became eventually. Because with her understanding and guide through that burnout for something that was happening in my life, it wasn't even work related, I came back so empowered and motivated to be like her. On the other hand, I had another, I'm not even going to call him leader, but I had a boss where, it's not like he was mean or anything, but it was one of those people where my personal life didn't matter. And I burned out so badly. And so it was the same company, pretty much the same circumstances, just 10 years later. And the outcomes were so different just because of the leadership style. Right. So I know firsthand the impact that comes. And everyone that has worked for me can attest that I am like one of those leaders that I get to know the person, right? Like, I know everything about them. It has so much impact in the performance of people, because all of the sudden, and you probably have experienced it as, when you were working too, if anyone care about you, you give your 110%, because you care about them too. And you want them to be successful. And then to get there, the teams flourish. And that's how you create high performing teams, by caring about your people. It's so simple.
And I really love your distinction there between boss and leader, right? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your job title is. You can be an entry level individual contributor and you can still be a leader. Mm-hmm. And so I think so many people miss that. They feel like, well, I can't do that, or I can't support and mentor and grow the people around me or care about the people around me until they directly report to me or until I step into that leadership position. And I don't think that that's true. I can tell you all the time, my kids are leaders to me often, right? Yes. When they remind me, you got angry too quick, or you said you were going to do this thing and we didn't, or whatever it may be. And so any single one of us can be a leader. And that starts with how you treat the people around you. Mm-hmm. If your home life feels super chaotic, even physically, right? They always say, you get to this certain point where you get this like rage clean because you've like dealt with the house a certain way. And then finally you're like, I can't take it anymore. I have to clean it. And then you can breathe and you can do your best work or be your best self. It's the same way at work. Do I have this calm, this safety, this where I don't have to feel like I'm in fight or flight mode? And in order to get employees out of that, they have to feel safe and supported in their work environment.
Yes, absolutely. So in your business, in what you do to support people to move in their careers upwards and grow professionally, do you teach them how to start tapping into this type of leadership?
I do. And what I always tell people is you have to start with yourself. You
Mm-hmm.
have to get really real with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And until you are, you really can't mentor and guide and support others. And so we typically will start with an introspective look at that. But for sure, it's about how do you model the environment you want to be in?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you bring others along with you as you're doing that?
You know, I wasn't sure we were gonna get there in this podcast, but since you opened the door for me, I'm just going to speak up my mind a little bit because life is a journey, and if you're not growing, you're dying. So we're always getting better at something. Hopefully. In the last, I don't know, 5 years, I've gone through a self-discovery journey myself. And I can tell you that by doing that, everything around me has changed. The way I show up in the world changed. I mean, my kids have noticed it. I've been able to rekindle the relationships with my children that were suffering because I was in this constant mode of surviving with work and all this stuff. But also my team noticed it because when you are compassionate with yourself, when you look at yourself and you stop beating yourself up, I should have done that. Oh, the things that we tell to ourselves are just like crazy. Like you will never have a friend that talks to you the way you talk to yourself.
Yeah.
And when you stop doing that, or when you take a pause to say, wait, well, I'm human. Maybe I've done that in the past, but let me see how I can make it better. And this is applied to work. It's like how you show up in a meeting, how you address a situation, how you respond to a fire drill. I mean, like I'm not talking about just outside work, but bringing it back to your point is when I became aware of all these things, everything changed. So I totally support your way to approach this, which is just looking at yourself first, because it's so important. You cannot, as you said, you cannot be a guide, you cannot be a leader unless you know where you stand. Like what is the base, where do we go from here?
Yeah. And I think it also speaks volumes, awareness. I really love that word. I think all of us need it just to make it through life day to day. But in particular, when you're talking about your professional journey, that awareness on your team too, right? And that's part of that heartfelt, really getting to know each other as people, is because even the most healed, trauma recovered, the lightest floating human being in the world is going to have moments where they just don't show up the way they intended to. They don't show up in their best light. And when you've built this team where we know each other, we trust each other, I know what Carmen's baseline is. So if she shows up differently this day or reacts differently in a certain situation, I know it's not me. It's not personal. It's probably something she has going on or something she's feeling. But when you have that heartfelt leadership, it's okay to say, hey, Carmen, I don't think that's how you intended to show up. What's going on? Can I support you? Can I take something off of your plate? And you're not fearful of doing that because you've built this relationship together all along, versus waiting for someone to completely blow up and then you're like, they have lost it and I don't even know what to do with them. It's like, it's this continual relationship building that allows you to have those more challenging conversations without them feeling like you're attacking someone or calling them out at their weakest moments.
How do you approach it with your clients to like bring that awareness and like help them see the importance and even like start doing it? Because if you are not wired that way, which most people are not, like you have to have some trigger event that like puts you in a situation where you want to start doing it.
Yeah. I start with taking my clients through. I have this blueprint, is what I call it. And it's about 4 or 5 steps. And at the very end of it, we go through all of the roles that you play in your life. whether they're chosen roles, like I chose to be a mom, or I choose to be a friend, or I choose to be an employee, or they're just given roles that you're kind of forced to do to survive, whatever it may be. And you got to the end of it, and then you start going through the feelings that come up with each role. Automatically, don't think twice about it. What's your guttural reaction when you see that role written on the piece of paper? Does it bring you negative feelings? Does it bring you positive feelings? Does it bring you feelings of like, I enjoy this, but not in this way? Like for me, I love working. I don't like being on meetings 10 hours a day, but that happens sometimes. So you start to look at what are the feelings of the roles that you're playing. And that way you can start to prioritize which ones you need to remove from your life or make a change in, and which ones you need to start doing more of. And that's where you start to get out of that, I'm just showing up because I have to, or I'm doing this because I have to, because I have to is not really true. There is no supposed to or have to. It's however you design your life to be. And so you've got to get that stability for yourself, because you can fake it till you make it, right? And you can act like you're aware, and you can build these relationships with people. If you aren't in a place to even accept that feedback, to do something about it, now that's just kicked off a chain reaction where everyone's pissed off at each other. Now the team is, in a state of chaos, and then you bring that home, and it just becomes this vicious cycle. And so it's like each person has to decide, I'm going to be the cycle breaker, whether it's my family, my job, my team, my own emotions. I'm breaking that cycle to show up and design the life the way I want it to be designed. And people will naturally gravitate towards that. When you aren't the one who gets all fired up and causing chaos, people are just like, oh, they're chill over here in the corner. They're still getting their job done or whatever it is. And then people start to gravitate towards that. And that's how you start to affect that change. And you don't have to, be vocal about it. You don't have to tell everybody else they're wrong because they're not doing
they will see it. They will definitely see it. Yes, yep. Absolutely. Yes, no, totally. And I find that when you take that step and you start, walking your talk, because actions speak louder than words. I mean, you can go say like, tell the world, like announce, press release, I am going to change. I'm going to be a heartfelt leader now. And, and if the actions don't match with that, you're going to lose total credibility. And quite frankly, right, when you're taking a new skill in any field, you're going to be like a roller coaster, right? Like there's going to be days you're going to do great. And then you're going to like totally, fall down. And then, so it's better not even to announce it and just do it. But it creates so much trust with your team when you actually start behaving that way. When you walk your talk, when you do what you say you're going to do, and they see that, that's when leading by example comes about. And you might be thinking, it's like, oh, nobody's paying attention. Oh, everybody's paying attention. Because when you have the hard conversations and you get that feedback, then you realize like, oh yeah, it really matters. It really matters.
Yeah. And I think it's so important, that honoring what you say you're going to do, or just not saying it all and just start living it. Mm-hmm. Because I had, one of my final jobs that I had when I was still a full-time employee, I have a daughter who's chronically ill, and we had 1 year where she spent 8 months in the hospital.
Oh.
And they would call me and say, oh, don't worry about work. Take care of your daughter. It's family first. We're a family company, all of those things. And then the minute they would hear she's out of the hospital, they'd call me and they'd say, well, you don't have any more PTO. So what are you going to do? And it's like, well, wait a second. Is it family first and get my daughter situated? Or is it that you were just waiting for a discharge date so you could dump all of my work back on me and, chastise me for having taken unpaid days off? And that's one of those things that's like, it's not, I don't care what you say your values are. I don't care what you say your mission statement is. I don't care about any of that. I care about how you actually show up and treat people. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's worth its weight in gold. And that's what builds that stability, that people feel safe to be there and be open and honest. Because if I knew that they weren't going to treat me like that when she got out of the hospital, I probably would have worked while she was in the hospital, or traded off with my husband or whatever. but I knew what was coming. So it's like, yep, I'm just going to take my time off until it's time to get out of here. And then I'll deal with the consequences later.
Yeah. It really needs to come from the top, right? It needs to come from the C-suite, because otherwise it's like diversity and inclusion, right? It becomes this checklist in a clipboard, but then nothing changes, right? Like I put a post the other day that diversity is actually inevitable, but inclusion is a choice. You have to change the way you behave and perform and have your policies and values and all that, because just having the people there doesn't make any difference. Same with Heartfelt Leadership. You can have very good leaders at the mid-level, right? Which is probably where you're going to have, the new generations, the millennials, and, coming up that have different concepts than Gen Xers. But if it's not coming from the top, it's very hard for a leader to like really make an impact.
Yeah. And I'm just going to tell you, get out of my head, because I was instantly going to DEI initiatives. I just recently read an article, and I think, probably many of us are seeing this, right? DEI initiatives are being scrapped left and right because companies are saying, well, I can't attach an ROI to it. Why do you need to? It's people.
Yeah.
Why do you need to prove, growth and dollar amounts for taking care of people?
But actually, like, that's really short. I'm sorry, that's really like narrow. Like, because it actually has an ROI, because when you have diversity and you empower your people to think diversely, left brain versus right brain, you can come up with solutions to market problems in different ways. I'm sorry, there's different ways to see the world than one. So, but there's definitely an ROI to attach to it. And there's a lot of data to prove it. So when someone said like there's no ROI attached to it, I will question that.
Yeah, that's what I say too. I'm like, they make metrics for everything under the sun. If they really wanted to measure it, they would. But again, like you said, it's a checkbox thing. And my thing is I'm sorry, you can't go, if you've been an all male company and you go hire a couple women, you still, like you said, that inclusion. Women need different things in the workplace than men do, or different races, or different backgrounds, different financial upbringings. People need different things when they're being in their workplace. And so you can't just hire them and get your federal tax credit because you did it. You also have to make the workplace a place for them. I mean, as a mom, I can remember times I was told, well, can't you just go pump in the bathroom? No, that's unsanitary and disgusting. And like, no, I'm not going to do that. But that's because they don't have that exposure. They don't see that. And that's what inclusion really is how do you make that workplace feel safe and supportive for people who look, think, and have different upbringings than what you did, because we don't all need the same thing. And, I think it's beautiful that in our day and age, it's starting to be, it doesn't matter how you identify, you probably carry a majority of those roles, right? Like we all carry so many roles. And that's why I feel like when you're looking at your professional life and how you're building partnerships in that area, you can't look at it in exclusivity outside of your personal life, because those roles all carry over. Every team I've ever led, we lead ways of working sessions, at least quarterly. And anytime something major changes in our lives or on our team or in the company, because I want to know if someone needs to be off every morning to drop their kids off at school, or needs to be off for prayer time, or doesn't mind working, late evening hours, but needs to be off every Monday to go get chemo. Whatever it may be, those are the kind of conversations that you want to have. Because if you're building a heartfelt, inclusive space, but it's all on your own assumptions, I'm just going to let you know it's not inclusive at all. Right. You have to let the people who need it safely and supportively speak up for what they need to show up and do their best work.
I love it. That is actually so well articulated and put together, Gabrielle. That's majestic. You should put it like, in a tile and a poster. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to share a little bit about what you do and how can people connect with you, because we're approaching the end of the episode. But I want to make sure everyone, follows you and get to see your brilliance.
Thank you, Carmen. Yeah, absolutely. I'm most active on LinkedIn, so you can connect with me there, Gabrielle Hayes. In my company, Sequence Partners, we focus on career empowerment and coaching and just really around the confidence of how do you prepare yourself to head into your next role, whether that's changing companies or growing in the company you're at. And so I run monthly career prep sprints where you can pop in with us. We meet once a week and just really get down to what you need to show up confidently. And so that's at sequencepartners.consulting. And that blueprint that I talked about is actually free and it's on the website. So if anyone wants to start with those roles and figure out how do I prioritize my roles and really get that introspection that you need before you start making changes, you can download that for free on my website.
So and we're going to put all those details in the description of the episode so everyone can find Gabrielle in LinkedIn and also her website. But I want to know, what is one thing you can tell product managers who are looking to expand their career and grow professionally? What is the one thing they can do today to start?
The one thing I'll recommend you do absolutely today, non-negotiable, is be real with yourself around your core values. Mm-hmm. What actually makes you happy and feel satisfied in life? And we're in a glorious time in our world where there's companies popping up literally every second for every sort of specialty in the world. So more than likely, there is a company out there that you can marry your personal and professional desires and really feel like you're making the impact you want to see in this world.
I love it. Thank you so much, Gabrielle, for being in the show today. And we'll see you in the next episode. And until then, don't forget to lead intentionally. Bye.